Stand in the doorway of an unheated shed in February, and you will understand why the old families did not waste heat. Every degree cost something: wood, coal, money, or the work of hauling it in through the dark. And there, in the corner of that shed, behind the tools, half buried in a cardboard box, sits a tin can. Not the kind you buy, the kind you empty, the kind you are about to throw out with the rest of the trash. Most people look at it and see nothing. The old families looked at it and saw a pocket of warmth. And today, a surprising number of people are seeing it again. They are not seeing it because it is new, and they are not seeing it because it is clever. They are seeing it because of what it costs, which is nothing, and because of what it does not need, which is everything else. My name is Walter Northwood, and by the end of this you will know exactly why a candle, a can, and a few minutes of patience still beat the plug for one small, honest job. Start with the physics, because the physics is not in dispute by anyone. A candle flame is small, but it is not weak. At its base, the flame of an ordinary candle is burning somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,000 degrees Celsius, hot enough to melt lead, hot enough to soften glass. It is a column of heat, and that heat is leaving the room whether you help it or not. Left open on a table, the heat rises straight up, spreads across the ceiling, and escapes. You pay for that heat in wax and in air, and you get almost none of it back. Now, put a tin can around that same flame, and you change what happens to it in 3 ways at once. First, the can shields the flame from the draft. A candle in a moving room burns uneven, gutters and wastes wax turning its own flame sideways. Inside the can, the air is still. The flame burns steady. Steady combustion is efficient combustion. Second, the metal itself warms. And this is the part most people miss, because it is the part you can feel but cannot easily see. A flame throws heat mostly upward. A warm surface throws heat in every direction at once. That is the difference between convection and radiation, and it is the difference between a candle that warms the ceiling and a can that warms the air around you. The can becomes a radiator, a small one, but a real one. Third, the air trapped between the flame and the metal becomes a small, deliberate pocket of warmth, a buffer that the room can borrow from, gradually instead of watching the heat vanish in one rush. That is the whole trick. There is no motor, no electricity, no pump, no moving part. It is a flame, a can, and the behavior of heat, and every one of those 3 things has been understood for longer than any of us have been alive. Here is where people get it backward almost every time. They watch a video of a tin can heater and they believe it'll heat a whole room. It will not. I want to be precise about this, because this is not a guess and it is not a theory. It is arithmetic. A single candle produces roughly the same heat as a 40-watt bulb. That is the honest number. No arrangement of tin and air multiplies that number, because energy does not come from nowhere. The can does not make more heat. It makes better use of the heat that is already there. And there is a world of difference between those 2 sentences. So what does a tin can heater genuinely do? It is smaller than the videos claim, and more useful than the skeptics admit. In a small enclosed space, a shed, a hunting blind, an ice fishing hut, the cab of a parked truck, it takes the raw edge off the cold. It keeps a small space above freezing. It keeps your hands warm at a workbench. It turns a space that is dangerous to sit in into a space you can work in for an hour. And that is not a failure of the idea. It is a failure of the expectation. The men and women who built these did not think of it as clever. It was just the obvious answer to a problem they did not have the luxury of ignoring. Here is the part most people never hear, because nobody tells it. This was never a secret. It was never some lost technique hidden in a single family. It was, for generations, simply what you did. Before electricity ran to every house, before central heating was a thing anyone could imagine affording, the small cold space was a constant in northern life. The shed, the root cellar, the ice house, the workshop, the milking parlor before dawn, and in every one of those spaces you would find some version of the same answer. A can, a candle, a lamp, a small contained flame placed where the work was, and not an inch more than was needed. Because heat you did not need was heat you had paid for twice, once to make it and once to haul the fuel for it. There is a word the old families would have recognized instantly, and it is a word we have mostly forgotten how to use. Not efficiency, though they understood efficiency better than we give them credit for. The word is proportion. You heat the space you are in to the degree you need for the time you are there, and not a single degree more. A candle in a can is proportion made out of trash. It was not nostalgia. It was arithmetic done by people who did not have a furnace in the basement and did not need one because the cold space in front of them was never actually the whole house. It was just the shed. So here is the build, and you likely have every piece of it already. A clean, empty tin can, its label removed. It does not need to be large. A soup can, a tomato can, a coffee can. Any of them will do. Though the larger the can, the longer it takes to warm and the more gently it gives that warmth back. One hole punched low in the side near the base. This is not decorative. This is the draft. A flame is a living thing, and it must breathe. Without a way for fresh air to come in low, the flame starves, gutters, and dies, or burns weak and cold. Punch that hole before you light anything. A candle set inside, centered. And then, the detail that matters more than all the rest, time. Give the can 10 minutes, maybe 15. A cold piece of metal is a thief until it warms. For the first few minutes, the can is not giving you heat, it is taking heat out of the flame to warm itself, and if you judge the idea in those first minutes, you will judge it wrong and walk away believing it does not work. Let it warm first. Then put your hand a foot from the side of the can. You will feel it. That is, the radiator, finally awake. And now we come to the part that should not be skipped, because this is where the honest people are separated from the fools. A flame inside a metal can is not a toy. It is a fire, and a fire wants one thing from you, which is your full attention. Set the can on a surface that cannot burn. Not wood, not a cardboard box, not the floorboards, a brick, a paving stone, the lid of an old cast-iron pot. Keep it away from anything that can catch, and remember that heat rises, so check what is above the flame, not just what is beside it. Never leave it burning in a room you are not in. Never leave it burning while you sleep. That is the rule, and there is no exception, because the families who kept these did not lose their homes to them, and the reason they did not is that they understood one thing above all others: the heat is a guest, and the fire is not. And one more, because it matters more than people think: ventilation. A candle in a closed, sealed room is burning your oxygen, and it is putting carbon monoxide into the air you are breathing. In a small space, crack a window, just a little. The old spaces were never airtight, and neither should yours be. Now, why is this not standard advice today? Why does no one sell you this at a store? Why does it live on the internet as a curiosity instead of in every shed where it used to live as a fact of life? Because it costs nothing. Because it needs no replacement parts. Because it does not plug in, and it cannot be metered, and it cannot be sold to you again next winter. Sit with that for a moment, because here is the part that should make you angry. We are surrounded by devices that solve the same small problem this can solve, and every one of them costs money, and every one of them plugs in, and every one of them will break and need replacing. And the simplest answer, the one that has worked for 150 years, the one made from something you are going to throw away, is not for sale, not because it does not work, because there is no profit in it. A product that requires nothing to be bought again is not a product. It is an enemy of the people selling products. And so the simple answer stays in the shed, and the shed stays cold, and we are taught to reach for the plug. And if you zoom out, you start to see that this was never really about one tin can. It is about a way of thinking. The old families did not solve the winter with one big purchase. They solved it with 100 small answers, each one the right size for its job, each one made from what was already there. A storm window in October, a door snake stuffed with sawdust, a candle in a can in the shed. None of it was a furnace. All of it together was a house that stayed warm and a bill that stayed small. We have been taught to think the opposite way, that the answer to every problem is a product, and that bigger is always better. And the result is that most people today are, in the middle of the coldest months, colder and poorer than their great-grandparents were, in houses that are better insulated than anything those families ever slept in. The tin can will not fix that. A candle in a coffee can will not heat your living room. I have told you that already, and I will not take it back to sell you the idea. But it will remind you of something that is true, and that we have forgotten. That you are not helpless without the systems. That heat is not a subscription, that the difference between warm enough and cold is sometimes not $9,000. Sometimes it is a can you were about to throw away. Put together a candle you already own, a can you were going to throw out, one hole punched low for the draft, and 10 minutes of patience while the metal wakes up. And you have a source of heat that is genuinely free, genuinely independent, and this is the part that matters most. Genuine about what it is. Not a furnace, not a miracle, not a room heater. A small honest answer to a small honest problem, the same way a family handled it before the systems, and before the meter, and before the monthly bill. Subscribe if you want to keep seeing the practical answers the old families kept in their sheds, the small ones that cost nothing and are never for sale. And tell me in the comments, have you ever run a tin can heater? And what did it actually do for you? Not what the video promised, what it actually did, in the space you actually put it in. Go and try it if you have not, with the safety rules in mind, and tell me what you find.